Hello and welcome to DudeCast TV. I'm your host, Dexter. Dude, who's going to talk about some shit. Thank you to those of you who reached out to me over the last couple of weeks to check in on how things were going, and thank you for listening to my explanation in my last podcast. My mom's doing fine. We've made some small changes. She's no longer working nearly as much overtime, and we're getting her into another cardiologist to make sure everything's going smoothly. I am no longer anxiety ridden over her conditions and how she's doing. She seems to be doing fine. And if anything, this whole experience has made me appreciate her more and everything she does for me. So, if anything, this scare was helpful. We were to net the outcome here. So, thank you for those who listened to that last podcast. I know it was very personal, but hopefully the message of reaching out to your loved ones, telling them that you love them, was received. And for whatever reason, the file was partially corrupted when I was uploading the video, and I didn't notice until later on when somebody told me, but it does get cut off at the end. I pinned a comment on the top of the, underneath the description, on the top of the comments, telling you, because I have the original file, and I put into words in a quote, because it literally just cut off the last sentence of the entire podcast before my outro. And I put it in that top comment if you were interested in reading it, because it is probably the most profound piece of the entire podcast. But I'm not going to repost it. I'm not going to re-upload it, because I didn't even put any hashtags with that episode, because that wasn't the point. But the point was to express to you, the people who give a shit, the people who reached out to me to make sure I was okay, I wanted to inform you about what was going on, what was happening. So there is no point for me to repost it to get more views, if you will. That wasn't the point. So thank you for listening, and thank you for returning. Today, it's somewhat related in a way, just because of the emotional aspects of it, especially with everything that's happened. For those of you watching this in the future, I'm recording this in under a week after Roe v. Wade was appealed in the Supreme Court. And tensions are high in the United States for a myriad of reasons. I'm not going to speak about that subject here. But, needless to say, I can tell from what I've seen on social media, the news, and just from talking to people in my own life, that there is quite a lot of anxiety and feeling of helplessness and even panic right now. So I'm going to go over something that happened to me a couple of nights ago. This happened Friday night. Today is Monday morning. So Friday night, I had a bit of a runoff with my anxiety. I got home. It was a hard day. It was a good day up until the end. Something had happened that I'm not going to go into. And I could feel, once I got home, my anxiety was starting to build. My heart was starting to race. And I had the urge to go and chop wood, sprint, hit the heavy bag, something. I needed to do something. I felt something inside me welling up. And I had to find a way to contend with that. Today's podcast is going to go over that. And I'm going to allude to my dark passenger again, like I have previously in other episodes. Particularly, probably my favorite episode that I've recorded, and my favorite podcast that I've ever done, is the one that I allude to what my dark passenger is and what my process was, wherein I got to know, sat with, and became comfortable with my dark passenger while having a flare-up of depression and suicidal ideations. And I depicted my process from beginning to end as it was happening. Funny enough, this was the weekend before the day that I matched with my current girlfriend, who has been one of the healthiest relationships of my life, if not the healthiest. And things have been going very well ever since. And so I do credit this process that I went through to improving my life in ways that I never imagined possible. So this dark passenger figure that I mentioned is, it comes from Dexter, the show, serial killer who kills criminals. He refers to his urge to kill as his dark passenger. I refer to it as this piece of you that is the darker side of you. Your negative feedback loops, your intrusive thoughts, your anxiety, your depression, your suicidal ideations. Effectively, any intrusive thought or emotion that seems otherwise misplaced and working against you. That's what I refer to as my dark passenger. And so today I'm going to go through what I did to process these emotions as they happened. But first, I need to give more background. To say that I am extremely blessed is an understatement. I've been lucky enough to create support systems where, full transparency here, financially, my parents would give up everything they own to support me if it was necessary. I have 5 or more friends of whom would drop everything to come to my aid no matter what it was. And I have an incredible girlfriend that has been and always will be there for me through my most intimate and vulnerable moments. I have fantastic people that I can lean on when I need to. And I am thankful and I am blessed and I am humbled to know that I have such an incredible foundation of support in my life. And that I have so many people in my corner cheering me on and propping me up when I fall. That being said, sometimes I need to do it myself. Kind of like how you need to diversify your investments, you need to diversify your support systems. You can't just rely on other people. You need to try and rely on yourself as well. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And so this next bit, I'm going to be reading a lot from my journal here because one of the things that I did was journal for 2 hours. I put the phone on the charger, I went outside, and this is what I did. Tonight is such a night. As I sit here by the fire, no phone, no electricity, and only the night sky and the light of the fire lit before me, I'm sat firmly with my dark passenger. At first, I thought to run from him, distract myself with something mindless like chopping wood, hitting the heavy bag, or distracting myself with video games or Netflix. Instead, I lit up a cigar, started a fire, and cracked open my favorite beer. Tonight was a hard night. I could feel my anxiety building. I knew that if I let it, the feeling of helplessness would throw me into a panic attack. I thought to lean on my support systems, but I quickly realized that this wasn't a problem that needed solving. It was an issue of my own making and imagination. So here I sit with myself, and as I do, I'm accompanied by my dark passenger. And suddenly, I'm not so alone. I'm face to face with he who impresses upon me and orients me toward panic. Only now that he's here, the calmness comes over me. And somehow, he feels warm and familiar. Somehow, everything that felt so wrong and so scary, I feel at peace with. And I realize that because of this, I can love myself. And so, when the anxiety begins to feel like it's just too much, I'm under the impersonation, or I'm under the, I have the feeling that we have the urge to just fix it with that instant gratification. We need to mend it right then and there. But if we're patient with ourselves, first and foremost, and we sit comfortably with it, and it being the dark passenger that I'm referring to here, I'm turning it into something tangible, then I'm pretty sure that that immediate gratification can be pushed aside. Because I don't think that the immediate gratification would do it. I don't think that that would fix the problem. I don't think it's going to make the anxiety go away. Sometimes we need to sit with it and shut out the rest of the world. And that's what I did. That's why I left the phone inside, I went outside, and spent some time out with nature. And this is true now more so than ever before. With all this technology at our fingertips, we feel like we can solve any problem instantaneously. Unfortunately, that is not always the case. Sometimes we need to disconnect from the world so that we can recenter ourselves. We do this by sitting with and getting to know ourselves in more intimate detail, all of ourselves, especially the deeper and darker parts of who we are. I refer to my anxiety, depression, self-loathing, and other negative aspects of myself as my dark passenger, a piece of me that is always there, lingering in the background. For years, he remained ignored. unattended and disregarded as effectively weakness within me, something that should be completely discarded. But in recent years, I've become intimately acquainted with him, and because of this, I've become more capable than I ever have. And lastly, I've come to better understand and accept all of myself for the first time in my life. One of the things that holds us back is our ability to accept who we are. Now, I don't mean a misplaced sense of confidence. I don't mean that we become more narcissistic in how we see ourselves. I mean we understand our faults. I've mentioned previously about these people who feel the urge to tell the world how hard they work, how humble they are, and how they're going beast mode and they're out here grinding in silence. And I mentioned how, who are they trying to convince? Us or themselves? I think they're more trying to convince themselves. They want the clout of being a hardworking, grinding individual who is manifesting their wants and needs into the world. They're manifesting and bringing their dreams into reality, achieving their goals. That's what they want. And they think that the more they say it, it's a fake it till you make it thing. But I can't stand that. I'll never call myself a good trainer. I'll never call myself a humble person. I'll never call myself these things in absolute. Everything's a range. And I really believe that to be true, all things in life. I even did a podcast a few weeks ago about range, how important it is. Anything to one extreme or the other is a problem. Only Sith Lords deal in absolutes, says the Jedi, who deals in the opposite end of the absolute. So the idea here is that you are always striving towards something. You attempt to strive toward something. Nothing is always, and nothing is never. Try not to deal in absolutes. What does that mean? I strive to be humble. I strive to be hardworking. I strive to be a good trainer. And when you strive for these things, you'll receive feedback that tells you you're doing it correctly. When I have a client that posts a testimonial about me on social media, I didn't ask them to do that. It just happens. When you are doing things correctly, when you are striving to be a good trainer, your clients will express that to you and those in their life. They will send you referrals. They will do all of the things that build you up because you build them up. When you strive to be humble, you will recognize the difficult events in your life that humble you, but you don't need to speak about it because you already got everything you needed from it. And you can speak about situations where you felt humbled, but if you just say outright that you're humble, you're not inherently humble. It's like calling yourself modest. It makes no fucking sense. And with hard work, you will never be satisfied with the work you put in. You'll always feel you could do more. Every workout that I do, every routine that I build, I feel like it could always be better. And true work ethic is a striving for more. You are always striving to work just a little bit harder. And that includes when you're having a balanced life of rest and work, luxury and work. When you do that, you can still work harder. You don't sacrifice the luxury for more work. Instead, you improve the efficacy of the work you're doing without sacrificing the luxury. It's not so cut and dry. It's not so black and white. It's always a gray area. You find the balance that is optimal for you. You find the range that is good for you. I've said it before. It's like blood glucose. Your blood glucose is too low, you'll pass out. It's too high, you'll fucking die. You have to pick an optimal, healthy range for you. And like I said today, it's good to be prepared, even if you have all the support systems in the world. It's good to be prepared for what you are capable of doing to yourself. It's one of those things where there's a quote out there that says, your talent will take you places your character cannot keep you. So constantly test your character. Put yourself in situations where you're forced to sit with yourself and the worst pieces of you. Become more accepting of who you are so that when those intrusive thoughts come, you can address them. not deal with it. To deal with it would be to run from it. To deal with it would be to find a vice to distract you from it. Instead, address it at the root. Get to know and become acquainted with, intimately become acquainted with, your dark passenger. That's what I suggest. Strive for better. Never say you're better. Say you're trying and striving for better. It's a big difference, I promise you. Thank you for listening. I have been Norman, you have been my cast, and I your dude. I'll see you guys next week. Deuce Magoose. See you later.
It's time to put our times behind. Get off the bad things off your mind. He's feeling good, she's feeling good, we're feeling good, yeah. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude. We're all dudes, hey, I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude. We're all dudes, hey. There's nothing better than your friends, there's no problem. You can't win someone who's always got your back, not caring about this or that. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude. We're all dudes, hey, I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude. We're all dudes, hey, I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude. We're all dudes, hey, I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude. We're all dudes, hey. It's all about meeting new faces, the smiles on